Can't hear you, George.
Touch your thing.
And justice for all.
Okay.
All right, we're ready. So again, we'd like to welcome everyone this evening. We want to mention that this is a virtual meeting and it's open to the public. If anyone would be interested in participating, you can do so by dialing 1-800-309-2350, conference number 237-7193, and we encourage all the participation that we can get. Thank you. Let the records reflect the all members are present. Commission members should have received the draft minutes of June 29, 2020. Any corrections or additions to those minutes? Jim, I do have a question. I guess I need more clarification what we actually approved for Mead Crossing based on your comments on your report that you gave us. Am I misunderstanding that in phase 2 we gave approval for the community center, or we did not?
Phase 2, you voted for contingent approval upon receipt of the remaining agency approvals. The site develop the pool and community center has a separate site development plan, and that is just at the concept stage at this point. Unfortunately, there was some confusion as to the posting. The developer believed he had posted the property, which he had, but that was for the final site division and not for the site development plan for the community center. So that requires a separate posting, and that project is going to basically run independent of the phase 2 development. So the concept was distributed to you a couple months ago, I guess last month, and we'll have that on the August agenda for formal concept approval. I can get into that a little bit later. I guess we're getting a little bit off topic for the minutes at this point.
I just wanted to be sure if we're going to approve the draft minutes, what we were actually approving.
Right. From the minutes, it was the final subdivision approval, contingent on the remaining agency approvals.
Okay, I guess what threw me off when it says phase 2, and I thought the community center was all in phase 2.
Right. It is supposed to be developed in conjunction with phase 2, but it has a standalone site plan that will be, well, the concept's been distributed, so, okay. But they still have to go through the rest of the site plan process.
Okay. That explanation, then I'll entertain a motion for approval of the June 29th minutes. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Okay, I think Ollie made the motion. Who seconded? Barry?
Yes, second.
All those in favor of that motion signify. Thumbs up. I got George, I got Barry, I got Jim, I got everyone. Those opposed, likewise, it's unanimous. Okay, thank you. There seems to be something with a lot of background squeaking. I'm not sure what that is. All right, action items for tonight is the Carroll County Water and Sewer Master Plan Amendment. Jim, would you like to start us off and lead us through this?
Sure. For those of you who have been on board for a while, you know that the water and sewer plan is updated every 3 years, but twice a year we have the opportunity to submit amendments for those periods where we're not updating the entire plan. And the Taneytown Crossing project has areas that are in the priority or existing / final service area, but parts of the property, since they're combining 3 different properties under 3 different ownerships, some of those properties were in the long range category. So in order for things to move forward, and particularly the health department to be able to approve things and sign off on plats, those areas had to be shown on the map to be in the priority planning area so that they would qualify for water and sewer service. So we've been working with the county for several months before the pandemic hit, and of course that threw meetings and GIS updates into a bit of a delay. And then there was a rethink on the developer's part as to a different way to approach things, and that didn't quite play out. So we came back to the amendment. And what we have in your packet this month, you had Price Wagner from the planning department at the county. You have his staff reports on both the water and the sewer amendment. Hopefully you had a chance to look through those. And also in your packet was the draft amendment as pertains to the Taneytown portions of the plan. So we are amending both water and sewer maps to include the Taneytown Crossing site in its entirety in the priority planning area where portions had been in the long range area. And we've also worked with the county to really refine the maps to more accurately reflect where the existing service within the city is. So we're really working on a much more data-driven mapping process, and the charts have of course also been updated to reflect the current demands and available facilities. So with that, I know Price Wagner, who is the driving force behind the amendment and the water sewer map, is on board here.
Yes.
So
Is on board here, so
we can turn it over to him if that's
I am
okay.
happy to. If that's okay. Yep, I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any. I have a small presentation I can also do, but it's pretty much a review of the staff report that Jim handed out to everyone. One other thing we did is we updated we worked with the city and worked on updating the chapters themselves to make sure we get everything as up to date, because even though the water and sewer master plan, when we went in front of Taneytown, originally it was in 2017. We didn't adopt the plan until 2019. So 2 years have passed. So what we actually did is updated the chapters to make them even more accurate than they were in 2017. So we're pretty much starting from a clean slate. And one thing that we have found that is good is the resources that Taneytown gave us when it came to the actual data, when it comes to the billing aspects. It made it so much easier for us to map the actualities of what's existing and on the ground, whether it's residential or commercial. And that is something we're trying to do for the whole county, but Taneytown definitely gave us the data we needed in a form that we needed. So we're going to try to work with all the other municipalities to see if they can actually do that same for us and get it in a form we can use it for. But as Jim said, Taneytown Crossing was the driving force. The overall project itself is going to roughly have 4,500 gallons a day. And of course, as they build out and actual usage those numbers come in, the demand potentially could go down depending on if everything is more energy or water efficient, and if there's not that much usage, the 4,500 gallons could potentially in actual usage be less. So technically you could have a buffer zone in there in the priority aspect. But besides that, the biggest thing we need from the Planning Commission tonight from Taneytown is to certify that the amendment itself is consistent with the year 2010 comprehensive plan as it pertains to just the area itself within the growth area or the city limits, and also the areas of updating the water and sewer plan. And of course, one thing we did do is there were definitely areas that we showed as long range, but in actuality, they were in existing. So we changed those and so the map is as accurate as it possibly can be.
Right, do we have any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
Go ahead, George.
On the back of page 69 of the Taneytown watershed, there is under water facility, you have existing wells, existing storage tank, and future wells. Now, the future wells are in red, and you can find them. But the existing well, the 8 to 10 years, you can't find them at all. We ought to be able to pick them out real easy on a map.
So you're talking about the actual the map colors for the wells when it comes to. Okay.
There's no way you can
And that's something
find.
we could.
There's no way you can find the 8 existing wells on the back of this page 69.
And that's something we can work on to make them easier to see, because obviously in a small form of what you have now, you're correct, it is harder to see. When we do the actual maps, they're on a much bigger 24 by 36 sheet versus what's in what you consider a book that we give out to everybody once the plan's done. So the bigger map, you can see it better. That's something I will take in the note and see if we can make it easier to see the actual well being green or whatever, make it so you can actually see it better on a smaller version map versus the big version map, which the city itself has hanging on a wall potentially. But that's definitely something we can work on to see if there's a way to make those colors stand out more, so you know exactly where the wells are when you're looking at a smaller version map.
Well, you might even want a separate page just for the existing wells.
All right.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, the gentleman, what we're looking for is the motion.
Correct. To certify that this amendment for Taneytown is consistent with the 2010 Taneytown comprehensive plan.
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion on that? Excuse me?
Well, I'll make a motion then to get those consistent with the 2010 plan.
I'll second.
Okay, I've got a motion from Ollie and a second by Barry. Is there any other discussion? Is there any call-ins? Jim, who's handling the call-in?
We do not have anybody on the line other than me to keep the line open.
Okay. With that then, all those in favor of that motion, that this confers with the master plan, thumbs up. I got Ollie, I got George, I got Barry, I got Jim, I got Judy. Okay, and myself. Those opposed, thumbs down.
Those opposed, thumbs down.
Carried. Pass.
Carried.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, that ends that portion of it. Jim, you want to go into the reviews? Actually, there is an ordinance or agreement reviews, but you want to do with your report?
Sure. Kind of brief this month. Things have been crazy as usual, as the last few months have been around here. I didn't, actually, I did include it in my report. We've done another 21 new homes so far this month. So people are pulling permits and they're building homes like crazy. And Meads Crossing and Meadowbrook has seen more than usual this month as well, with 6 new homes in that community as well. So it's been very busy on the zoning front this month. The Tannery Barn has finally gotten their UNO, and they're hosting their events. They've had some small events, I guess, limited by the pandemic right now. So
I'll get you in a minute, George.
okay, so they are moving along. They have been working with their engineer to produce the as-built that we agreed on when we allowed them to make some changes. So those are forthcoming. I did see a draft version, but it needed some revision, so that's kind of back to the engineer at this point. Meads Crossing is continuing to work to finalize those last couple agency comments. There's been a little bit more back and forth with development review on that, and they are currently working to complete their public works agreement with the city to be able to start working on their infrastructure for phase 2. So I have been in touch with the developer as far as the pool area and community center, so that certainly should be on our agenda for August. In the meantime, if anybody has had a chance to, hopefully you've had a chance to look over the concept that was distributed last time around, even though we didn't formally have it on the agenda. So if anybody has any thoughts one way or the other about that, feel free to share them. The sooner we get some news back to the developer, the better. But it will be on next month formally for concept approval. So that's where Meads is. Last thing that was in my report, we are continuing to work on capacity-related issues. CDM Smith is working to develop our capacity management plan, as we've gone over the 80% capacity threshold that triggers the need to do a new or to update a capacity management plan. So we have several things in the works. I think I may have mentioned in previous months that as part of the O'Brien Avenue Bridge and Roberts Mill Run stormwater retrofit project, we had to replace a section of sewer line that was the old terracotta pipe, and it also was in a watercourse area, so low-lying saturated soils and by a stream, so kind of the perfect storm for inflow and infiltration. As part of this project, that sewer line was replaced with plastic pipe, and we have seen a notable drop in the flows to the York Street pumping station as a result. So we are planning to continue replacing that terracotta line now from the bridge down to the last manhole before the pumping station, close to Route 194 or York Street. So essentially, we've been able to attribute a value to the I&I reduction for each linear foot of terracotta pipe that we're going to replace. So we're working through that and doing an inventory of pipe materials and sizes through the city. And we also have a flow study ongoing so that we'll be able to measure the inflow and infiltration after rain events to target our sewer line replacements and prioritize the work that way. So all that is going into a capacity management plan. And this also feeds a bit into, of course, our ability to grow in the future. And with discussions ongoing with the owners of the Sewell farm, the tree farm, that's 100 acres and potentially 300 some units. So our strategy there is basically to, I'll say, recover capacity through I&I reduction, because it's not likely that we're going to get a permit to increase the treatment plant capacity because of the limitations on the effluent, the flow that comes out of the plant. So basically, we've got to tighten things up, reduce our I&I, and regain capacity at the treatment plant that way, so that we can continue to have capacity for both residential and commercial or industrial growth. So that's about it for the report. Not a whole lot to update otherwise on ongoing projects. Nothing new really on the city parks projects. We've been keeping CDM Smith pretty busy on the water sewer stuff lately. So while some of that park work is being outsourced, not being done by our primary contact, the focus really has been on water and sewer. So some of the other city development projects have been kind of put on the back burner for right now. So that's about it for me. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
George, did you have a question?
Yes, I would like to discuss the 21 new home certificates that we've had this month. Before someone starts complaining about the amount of money that we're taking in now and setting aside, and asking for water and sewer reduction rates, what about these long-term recommendations that are in these plans for the future, 10 years and further apart? Why don't we do some of that now and use some of this money that's coming in, instead of setting thousands of dollars aside in accounts for down the road? Why don't we use some of it now as we go and work on some of these recommendations?
Anyone want to address that? Judy
Sure.
or Jim?
Sure. That actually is the plan. We have a capital improvement program in draft form currently, and those benefit assessments, or impact fees as some call them, those monies go towards capacity building projects. So as we refine this capital improvement program, which needs to be done, we had taken a look at a draft version for the Public Works Department last year, but of course a lot has changed within the last year, because we basically do a 3-year average of flows at the treatment plant. And since we had conversations about the capital improvement program for the Public Works Department, we had a relatively dry year drop off of that 3-year average, and then a more average year come in. So just with those numbers, it makes it look as though our capacity is diminished based on that 3-year average. So a lot of it has to do with the precipitation, on a rolling 3 years. So with that sewer limitation being on the forefront now, we're going to have to revisit that Public Works capital improvement program and focus more on the sewer projects than we had originally done. So that's something that is in the works. Unfortunately, as you know, we're still kind of short-staffed here at the office, so there isn't a lot of time to move forward on project stuff beyond just the day-to-day. So hopefully we'll get to a point where either I or someone has time to really get into things like the capital improvement program and things the city manager needs to be focusing on. But George, that is the plan. That's what those benefit assessment monies go towards, capacity building projects.
I don't want to see these impact fees get people upset and start yelling about, let's get the rates down when we have all these things we want to do in the future. Let's get some evidence out there.
Okay, that sounds good, Jim, George.
Yep.
The water loss that we had Friday night, how is those gallons calculated as far as usage and stuff like that?
We will have an estimated water loss in the next few days. I don't have it yet, but basically, Public Works will determine from the size of the opening that we found, the broken pipe that we found. They can calculate how many gallons a minute can flow through that pipe. And we do know that the low pressure alarms went on for the water system Friday late afternoon, and we lost a tremendous amount of water, but I don't have a number of gallons at this point. But the pumps ran a good 12 hours straight to bring the pressure back up in the system. So all is well at this point, but we know a tremendous amount of water flowed out of that broken pipe.
But we have to count that as used water then?
And we count it. We try to quantify that in our reporting to the state on our water usage. So we have billed usage, metered but not billed usage, like for the fire company and the city properties. We have a category for hydrant usage where, like, a developer may want to open a hydrant to fill a landscaping, water tank when they establish lawns, things like that. And then we also try to account for, we try to calculate water loss to leakage also. So we have a category that we report on regularly for any water main breaks and how much water was attributable to those breaks. So we do our best to keep track of that, because we want to make sure that our system remains tight. So if we, and I'll just throw a number, say we lost 100,000 gallons with this water main break. We want to be able to quantify that and associate that with the break, so that we're not trying to figure out, well, where did we lose this water, when we look at our billing numbers and our metered numbers versus what we pumped over the time period. So that is a routine step that the Public Works Department does when we have a water main break. They do try to quantify that, and it's based on the pipe diameter and the duration that we think the pipe was leaking. It's not going to be exact, but we get it pretty close, I think.
Okay, thanks. All right. Anyone have any questions for Jim? If not, we'll move on to Jay's report.
Very briefly, the only things that I have to report is that the Creekside development is finished. And we keep saying it's finished, but we returned the letter of credit that we've been holding as collateral for maintenance issues, which was released in the proper time. And so as far as we are concerned now, the Creekside development is finished. So that's positive news. And without goes one, like the window opens and one goes out, the door comes open, and the Taneytown crossing development has taken a tremendous amount of time to queue up and get ready to go. The good news is that once it actually goes, it should be a little bit more hands-off for us, because we've worked out all the details in advance. Whereas some of these developments, we do it as we go. We've done everything up front. So that has taken a tremendous amount of time on everybody's part. And that's really all I have for you guys.
Thank you. Cody, what do you have for us this evening?
Good evening, everyone. Short message from me as well. Just wanted to keep you guys updated on our comprehensive rezoning that is continuing on. The next meeting for the Planning Commission will be on August 5th, and then another follow-up on August 18th, and then the final meeting on September 2nd. There are no properties in the immediate vicinity of Taneytown, but just wanted to keep you guys aware of that. But that's basically all I got tonight. Thanks.
All right, Thank you. Right, anything else? Any call-ins, Jim?
No, sir.
All right, then we'll go around the shoe. Ollie, if you got anything?
No.
George,
No, I don't.
Barry,
Nothing for me.
Judy? Jim?
No, nothing.
All right, so it looks like our next meeting date is going to be August the 24th. And Jim, do you have any good news for us on where we're going to meet? Yep.
Well, the city office and council chamber should be available, but I think depending on where we are with the virus and social distancing and so on, we may remain virtual. The building will be ready for us. We'll just have to see how things play out as far as the pandemic and go from there.
Well, I think we're getting the hang of this now, so we need to, we will.
Yep.
So, does anyone have anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Barry made the motion.
Second.
Judy seconded. All those in favor of the motion adjourned, signify thumbs up. Got George, I got Jim, I got Judy, I got Ollie, I got Barry, I got Jim, right. Okay, the motion carried. Thank you very much, folks. Jim, before you
Ready.
leave, do you want me to sign this letter and drop it off up there?
That would be perfect. Thank you.